If you've built a great product and you've got revenues flowing, but you don't quite have that predictable growth machine yet, you don't have that scalable growth machine, then now is the time to build out a proper go-to-market strategy. I thought I knew what a proper go-to-market strategy was. It wasn't until I worked with some of the best go-to-market experts in the world that I truly see what goes into building a proper go-to-market strategy and how, when done right, it can unlock growth fast. So in this episode, I'm gonna walk you through my exact one-page go-to-market strategy template that I've battle-hardened over the years, that I've used with hundreds of SaaS companies. And when you implement this template and you build out your go-to-market strategy, you'll be able to accelerate your path to that next stage of growth. Intro. Welcome to Unstoppable. I'm TK, and on this channel, I help SaaS founders like you grow your SaaS businesses faster with an unstoppable strategy. So if you're new to this channel, welcome. I drop an episode every single Sunday with actionable strategies and tactics from the trenches on how to grow your SaaS business faster. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell icon, that way you'll get notified every single time I drop an episode with the TK energy. Now, if you're already part of this community, welcome. It's really awesome to see you over here. We're now nearly at 82,000 subscribers strong, so I'm really excited to have you over here. I remember when I was doing just a few 100,000 of ARR in my last SaaS company, Toutapp. One of my investors pulled me aside and he said, look, TK, I know you love product and I know you want to build the best product. But right now, you need to let the product sit at 80%. It's okay if it gets to 80%, but you need to get your go-to-market strategy and your go-to-market machine to being the best. Because if you don't do that, no one is ever going to truly discover the great product that you're building. And that really struck me because it got me to realize that unless I really figure out my go-to-market strategy, it is completely useless to build a really great product because no one is ever going to discover it. Over the next 6 months, we accelerated our path to $1 million in ARR with just a 6-person team. We went on to raise a Series A. We then went on to raise a Series B backed by Andreessen Horowitz. And then we ended up exiting the company to a company called Marketo. When I joined Marketo, I became their SVP of strategy. And then again, I saw how to scale companies at that stage. Marketo was approaching $500 million in ARR. And I learned all the key ingredients that goes into creating go-to-market strategies that really unlock growth. Fast forward, we ended up selling Marketo to Adobe for $4.75 billion. And then I started this company, Unstoppable, where I coach founders on their go-to-market strategy. Over the last 6 years, I've battle-hardened this template to build out a go-to-market strategy that consistently drives growth for SaaS companies. So in this episode, I'm gonna walk you through each of the steps that go into building a go-to-market strategy. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna walk you through my one-page go-to-market strategy template. I've broken it down into the 4 key steps, and if you watch till the end, I have a bonus one for you that really brings it together. So if you're excited to dig in, go ahead and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and let's go to step number 1. All right, so step number 1, we're gonna unveil this one at a time, just so I can explain each of these pieces. Step number 1 is to define your market strategy. Now, over the years, one of the interesting things that's happened is I've seen founders start to really embrace the ideal customer profile. This has ended up becoming a double-edged sword because founders on one hand are saying, yep, I have done an ideal customer profile. I totally have an ideal customer profile. However, when I double click on it and they're struggling with growth and I look at their website and I look at their messaging, it turns out they kind of did a mental exercise of building an ideal customer profile, but they never actually put pen to paper and made decisions on it or made choices around the target market they're going after. One of the biggest things that I learned from some of the best, some of the greats, is that strategy can be a complicated word, but in reality, it's a simple concept. All it is making choices. And when you're an early stage founder, you have limited resources, so you're making choices on where to concentrate those resources. So choosing the market is one of the first steps that I always approach when building out a go-to-market strategy for a company. More often than not, when actually working on an ideal customer profile, a true ideal customer profile, the conversation actually goes to how to pick the right ideal customer profile. Oftentimes, a product can be used across multiple segments, multiple ICPs, but the startup, the founder, the team doesn't have the resources to truly go after all those different ICPs, all those different segments of the market. So a lot of times what we're really doing is talking through who do we want to serve, why does it matter for them now, who is the ideal customer, who is not the ideal customer, and which one do we pick and double down on. One of the reasons this is step number one, and I obsess about it, is the rest of these steps will vary wildly depending on what you choose over here. The more diluted your choice is, and remember, strategy is just making choices, the more diluted your choice is, the more diluted the rest of these pieces are going to be. The more focused this step number one is, the more dialed in the rest of these pieces are going to be. So the more specific you are over here, the more intentional you are over here, the more strategic you are over here, the more successful you're going to be in all these other pieces. Okay, so that's step number one. Once you have the market defined and you've really had the intellectual conversation on, do we go after this ICP or this ICP? Do we conquer this now? What is our ICP for the next stage of growth? Then comes step number two. Once you have narrowed down the actual ICP you want to go after and the market you want to go after, the next step is to design your go-to-market engine. Well, there are a few things that really come into this. And again, what I've found is people tend to overcomplicate this because they're trying to sell you some overcomplicated thing that you don't really need. All you're really trying to figure out is, for this target market, how do we get their attention and get them to come to us? How do we get them to check out our product? How do we get them to show up to a demo? How do we get them to show up to our homepage? How do we get them to become a lead? So there are a few things you're trying to figure out. What is our current growth engine? In fact, what are you doing right now to get the revenues? Is it inbound? Is it all-bound? Is it outbound? What is our messaging and our strategic narrative? What are we telling these people to really get their attention? What part of it is working? What's resonating and what's not? And how do we attract people from our ICP into our growth engine? Meaning, what are we saying, in what channels, in what order, that's getting these people to show up right now? And how do we figure out what's working and what's not? These are all choices that you're making, sometimes through data, sometimes just through looking at it and being qualitative about it. And sometimes you may have nothing, but you will need to have some first bid, some thoughtful bid of exactly what you're gonna say to this target market to differentiate yourself from the rest of the market. One of the biggest things that I've seen over and over and over, and I've made this mistake too, is a lot of times people skip both of these steps and jump to the execution. They skip the strategy and they start executing. So I'll meet a lot of founders, and believe me, I've been guilty of this too, which is why I know it so well. I'll meet a lot of founders and say, like, TK, we've sent out 10,000 cold emails, or we've run this many ads, or we fired this agency, or we hired this fractional CMO and paid them for 3 months and we can't find them anymore and we don't know what happened. In any of these cases, what ended up happening is you skipped the choices part. Remember, every time I say strategy, think choices. You skip the choices and then you jumped to the execution. And I've made this mistake too. The thing about life is, if you're not intentional about the choices you're making, others make the choice for you. Implicitly, making no choice is a choice. And because of that, it's a flawed choice, and therefore your execution suffers. All right, so now before we go to the third principle and the third step and the fourth step, let me pause here for a second. You're starting to see the power in this. Just these 2 steps can completely change the trajectory of your company. Just these 2 steps where you're intentionally making choices about what market you're going to go after, what market you're not going to go after. And then based on that, choosing what messaging you're going to do, whether you're going to play in a particular channel or not. Is it LinkedIn? Is it social? Is it SEM? Is it SEO? All of these little choices are going to change the trajectory of your company. Now, if you're starting to get excited about this and you're starting to get some aha moments, please share it in the comments below. If you have a certain question about any of these items that I've shared so far, just share it in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer. Also, if you're seeing the power in this, go ahead and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It just loves it when you do that. Now, let's go to step number 3. Okay, step number 3, by the way, isn't this like really fun? This is the first time I've done this whole Scotch tape. This is super low tech, I know, but it's a lot of fun. The third step in building out your go-to-market strategy, remember, strategy is making choices, is to do the math. A lot of times, founders don't realize just how much is required, how much in terms of activity, how much in terms of leads or attention to just hit $1 million in ARR. And so one of the things I get founders to do is do the math. This is one of the things that one of my mentors taught me. They taught me to say, okay, look, if you're at 500K now and you want to get to $1 million, let's do the math on how many leads it's going to take and how much activity it's going to take. So one of the things I always get people to do, founders to do, is as part of your market, as part of your engine, let's figure out what the math is. So let's say, what is our target revenue? Let's just say it's $1 million. If it's $1 million, then how many customers do we need to hit that $1 million of revenue? So you basically divide your target revenue by your ACV and you'll get how many customers you need. If you need a certain number of customers, you divide that number of customers by your win rate, your average win rate. If you're sales driven, it's probably anywhere from 20 to 40% depending on how good you are. If you're product led, it's anywhere from 5 to 10%. So you just divide that and you'll get how many opportunities or trials that you need. And then you want to figure out how many leads you need, because not every single lead or not every single person that comes to your homepage or discovers you is going to enter into becoming an opportunity or enter into starting a trial. So you just divide that by 10% and you figure out how many leads that you need. This is simple math. This is not groundbreaking in any way, but it gets your brain starting to think about this go-to-market engine that I'm talking about. Is this going to yield what I need in terms of numbers, in terms of the amount of attention that I need? Let's just say you chose for your specific ICP, you're going to do organic social. Well, is organic social going to yield the number of leads that you need to hit your revenue target? Is that the right revenue target? And is the number of opportunities that you need to work, do you have enough salespeople for it? Or are you doing it? Is there enough time in your calendar? These are all constraints that exist in the real world. And when you skip the choices, you start executing, you skip all these pieces, and you don't really make tough choices on where you need to focus your attention. Now, this is where some of these things, remember how I was telling you how the market you choose dictates the success for everything else? One of the things I always get asked is, TK, to get to 3 million, there's 2 ICPs we want to go after. They can both use our product. And the first thing I always ask them is, okay, cool. Let's just say you go after both. Is the messaging going to be the same? If you were to just pick one of them, is the messaging going to be more focused or is it going to be the exact same as the second? If it's not the exact same, it means you have 2 different pieces of messaging. Remember, the more specific you are over here, the less you hedge the rest of these. If it's 2 different pieces of messaging, then it's 2 different funnels, 2 different types of posts, 2 different types of ads. So you basically want to take this leads needed and just double it because the yield is going to be lower because you just don't have enough manpower. This is where choices really set you up for success. This is not magic. The reason these questions are important, the reason you want to flesh out this strategy is it forces you to think about what's required to be successful and make the tough choices. Companies, startups, founders, they do the best when they look at their constraints, they look at it in the face, and they figure out how to be clever about it and how to still overcome them and be successful. So when you look at these pieces, it allows you to really make some choices on how are you going to spend your time? What are you going to spend your time on? In what way? What are you going to say? Who are you focusing on? And what are you saying no to? All these pieces start to come together. Okay, so that's step number 3, and we're not done yet. We got a 4th one and a bonus one. So let's go to step number 4. Step number 4 is one of my favorites. Almost every founder that I work with, that I talk to, that I coach, has some revenues flowing. So it's not dead. They're not at zero. They have some stuff going on. And I've worked with founders, and I am working with founders that are at 250K ARR, 500K ARR, million ARR, $1.5 million, 3 million, upwards of 110 million in ARR. One of the things that we always do is we diagnose what's working. Again, we're still in the strategy. We haven't done anything. We haven't executed on anything. And I want to point out 2 things. The crazy part is so many people go about sending 10,000 emails before they've made choices on these things. That's why they fail. And that's why you're not going to fail, because you're starting to see exactly what you need to do to get the strategy right, get the choices right, so that by the time you start executing on the cold email campaign or the ads or social or blogging or SEO or SEM, you're gonna be set up for success. Now, you have revenues coming in. So one of the things I always tell people to do is you should figure out what's working. You should ask yourself some critical questions to understand what's working so you don't kill the goose that is working while you're trying to scale. That's one of the biggest mistakes you can be making. The questions I always get people to ask, I get founders to ask is, what are our top 3 lead sources? What are our top 3 loss reasons? What are our top 3 attributes of our best customers? What are the top 3 objections we get from prospects? These are all questions that help us understand what's working and what's not. And based on that, we can start to understand what parts are actually feeding the machine and helping us hit these numbers and what parts are distracting us. That's the last piece of this go-to-market strategy template. Because once you do that piece, then you get the full picture of first principles. What are we going after? What do we say? What are the numbers that are needed? And what's already working and not working? And based on that, we can craft the execution plan. All right, so I promised you that there would be a bonus one that brings it all together. So if you're still watching, you get the bonus one. And by the way, if you're getting value, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It just loves it when you do that. Now, number 5 is make ruthless strategy and execution choices. This is where a lot of strategic offsites go wrong. I remember when Marketo bought ToutApp, they made me SVP of strategy, and I reported to the CEO and the COO. I reported to both of them. And one of the first jobs they gave me was, hey, we should do a strategy offsite. Get all the executives together and let's do a strategy offsite. And your job title has strategy in it, so you should plan it. It was awesome. We planned it. But one of the things I went into that strategy offsite with, I had been part of other strategy offsites in other companies. One of the things I realized is a lot of time people will get together in a room, they'll talk, they'll do all this stuff, but then next day they go back to doing their normal jobs. And they signed up for 50 more things that also don't get done. And a quarter later, they get back together and they realize the company's dying or it's flatlining and no one did anything. So one of the big things that I always do is you got to make choices. Now that you are making choices across all these lines, you have to commit to them. So one of the things I always get founders to do is do a stop, double down, start exercise. What are the things that you have identified no longer work? Maybe you are posting on TikTok and you realize your ICP does not hang out in TikTok, nor do they make buying decisions in TikTok. Cool, let's stop doing that. Maybe through this process, you've realized that a certain value proposition, a certain message, crafted a certain way, just crushes it. It crushes it in your ads, it crushes it in organic social, it crushes it on your homepage, and therefore, you need to double down on it. And you need to just get that in front of as much of your ICP as possible. Maybe you've realized, oh, we are not doing enough marketing to generate the number of leads to even stand a chance at hitting our revenue target. Like we are nowhere close to the number of leads that we need or the attention that we need. So maybe we need to spin up a more scalable channel. Maybe we need to stop relying on our existing network of people and actually spin up a proper scalable go-to-market machine so we can hit these numbers. So that's something you can start doing. This is something that forces you to recognize that you have a limited number of hours, limited number of people, and therefore you need to make choices not just on all the things you're going to do, but the things you're going to stop doing because you need to make space for doing the things that are actually going to yield results. This goes back to that original conversation with my investor. He was like, look, I get it. You love product and the product will always have room to grow. It will never be perfect, but unless you get the go-to-market right, no one will ever discover the great product that you already have. And sure enough, because we accelerated to $1 million and we raised that Series A and then that Series B, I was able to hire more engineers. I was able to hire a head of product management. I was able to hire product managers and designers to make a better product. But in order to get there, I had to stop building more product. I had to get out of coding myself. I had to double down on the go-to-market channels that were working and spin up new ones so I could hit the revenue numbers that I needed. And we did, and it all worked out. And it'll work out for you. So let's recap. Step number 1, you want to define your market. Specifically, what is your ideal customer profile? Who are you targeting? Who are you not targeting? You need to start making choices. Number 2, you need to design your go-to-market engine. What's the messaging? What's the positioning? What's the strategic narrative? What channels are you going to play in? And how are you going to win in those channels to attract your target market? Number 3, you need to get clear on your growth targets. What's your target revenue? How many customers is that? How many opportunities? How many leads do you need? That will help you understand what channels to focus on so that you can actually hit these numbers. Number 4, there's something that's working right now. Clearly you're getting revenues, maybe not the number you want. So let's figure out what's working and what's not. Ask these tough questions to understand where your revenue is coming from. Once you have the answers to these questions, then make some decisions based on the choices that you have already made. Now, choices and decisions are subtly different. Choices are what your intention is. Decisions are what you're going to be doing. This is where it goes into your go-to-market execution. The strategy, the choices you're making feeds into decisions that drive your execution on a day-to-day basis. So you want to be very clear about how many resources you have, including yourself, and decide, what do I need to stop doing? What do I need to double down on? And what do I need to start doing in order to hit these numbers and execute on this strategy? And that's my one-page SaaS go-to-market strategy template. So now you know my one-page SaaS go-to-market strategy template and all the pieces that goes into it. Okay, so now you know exactly what goes into building a proper go-to-marmarket strategy and the exact questions I ask inside of my template to build out a proper go-to-market strategy. Now, if you're at this point and you're still watching this video, you're likely a SaaS founder, you're generating revenues, and you're really looking to unlock the next stage of growth. So I'm excited for you, and I'm excited for you to answer these questions and start to unlock growth for your SaaS business. If you got value from this video, please smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It just loves it when you do that. I mean, we put a lot of love into these videos. If you're also at this stage where you're starting to implement your go-to-market strategy and you're starting to get questions, you're like, hey, TK, I really want to implement this. And there's a bunch of other questions that are coming up. And I just want the cheat codes. I want a step-by-step process so I can get this right, so I'm not wasting time. This is why I created my SaaS go-to-market coaching program. The questions that come up as you are implementing a go-to-market strategy include, what should my ICP be? There's more than one. How do I whittle it down? How do I really define a proper ICP? There are questions around, what should my messaging be that feeds and fuels the go-to-market engine and attracts this ICP? What channels do I operate in? How do I generate leads? How do I increase my conversion rates? These are all questions that come up when you start to implement the pieces. So inside of my go-to-market program, I guide you in building and implementing your go-to-market strategy so that you can accelerate your path to the next stage of growth. Typically, founders that join the program are able to build their go-to-market strategy within the first 3 weeks of joining, and then they're able to test it in the market and iterate from there. And best of all, in addition to the step-by-step training that I give you to implement your go-to-market strategy, I'm also there to guide you through the whole process. So if you'd like to learn more about the go-to-market program, just go to tkkader.com/GTM. tkkader.com/GTM. On that page, you'll get all the details about exactly what we do inside of the program and why it's been running for 6 years with so much success for SaaS founders. Now, one of the things that I know is the better the fit, the better the results. So based on everything we have in that page, if you'd like to work together, all we ask is you fill out a little form and book a strategy session with us. On the strategy session, we'll just work through where you are with the business, where you're looking to go, and if it sounds like a fit, if it truly feels like we can help you inside of the program, then we're off to the races right away. So just go to tkkader.com/GTM and you'll get all the details over there. Lastly, I drop an episode every single Sunday with actionable strategies and tactics from the trenches. So if you are not part of the 81,000, maybe 82 by the time you watch this, 82,000 subscribers that are part of this community, please smash that subscribe button and that bell icon. That way you'll get notified as soon as I drop an episode. And if you have a fellow founder, if you have a team member that would also get value from this video, please share this with them. It is my mission. The reason I do this channel, the reason I create these videos, the reason I run my coaching program, it is my mission to help founders build incredible software companies. This is what I love doing, and this is why I do it. So please share this video in any Slack group or WhatsApp group or text message group that you have, or share it with a fellow co-founder so that we're all building incredible companies. And lastly, remember, everyone needs a strategy for their life and their business. When you are with us, yours is going to be unstoppable. I'm TK, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care, everybody. I think we got it right. The thing about life is if you're not intentional about the choices you're making, others make the choice for you. Implicitly, making no choice is a choice. And because of that, it's a flawed choice, and therefore your execution suffers.